In this meeting? That's a good question. Good day, everybody. I'd ask if you're kind of hanging for the forum about the concept that we want to present, please kind of find a seat that's comfortable. For you, we've got the board of worship. I'm here to kind of just MC this for a little bit, and we will begin. So come on in, take a seat as we can. Our presentation will be up on the slides. You're used to looking up there, so it won't be too lost. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for being here. It's really nice to have a congregation who cares and is invested and thinks about things deeply. It's also really important that we have a congregation that plunges into imagination and creativity and hears ideas like this together. One of the things that I have come to know deeply about St. Mark's Lutheran Church is that it is a congregational church. You guys like to be involved. You like to think about things. You don't just have staff members making decisions for you, and that's good. There's collaborative ministry here in this place, and I want to tell you a little story. You guys remember how you filled out a survey, right? About everything that we're talking about St. Mark's and that you wanted to pastor. The Congregational Discernment Committee sent that out and then filed, everything down, funneled it down back to me. And so I got to hear from you, so thank you for filling that out. But one of the important things that I heard in that survey was a desire for greater communication and greater transparency, okay? So you are here today in that spirit. Just naming it what it is. To talk about something, such as our sanctuary that we love and that we are deeply invested in is no small thing. We all have strong opinions. We all have great ideas and thoughts about how to best, come together in a place of worship. And so I want to name that some of you might be really concerned about this, and some of you might have seen the email that went out, and I was like, oh, that's a dang good idea. I'm all about that. So in this room, there are a lot of feelings. I will tell you now, none of your feelings are wrong. 2, none of your feelings should be divisive at this point, okay? We don't do this in a spirit of carelessness. I want to say that now. We do this out of a spirit of great love and thought and intentionality, okay? What we are tasked to do as a council and a staff is to pay attention to the mission and vision and values of this place, growing together in faith to abundantly nourish our community so that, led by the Holy Spirit, all people would experience God's grace, peace, and welcome in the name of Christ. That's what we're doing. We have 4 congregational values that appear in this place over and over again. Worship, service, learning, and intergenerational community. Okay? That's the big picture. That's how we come together. That's how we express ourselves as a congregation. Okay? So that's why we enter into this conversation. I also want to say that this is a board of worship idea. This is not necessarily a council-approved idea. Sometimes, you have a town hall like this and a decision is already made. That ain't the case right now. All right, we are talking about this together, pros, cons, ideas, and there's going to be chances for feedback and time. Okay, we're going to have a few weeks before this, and we'll get into all that about how to give feedback appropriately. I want to introduce the Board of Worship. Board of Worship is a true collaboration of staff and lay members. So I'm on the Board of Worship, but I sure as heck don't lead it. We have Tracy is on the Board of Worship. She speaks to Altar Guild and worship movements and flowers and all the other support stuff. Patrick, obviously, with his music. Shelby up there with the online capabilities. So those are staff. That's 4 staff on the Board of Worship. But then our chair of the Board of Worship is Bob Bowler. Bob moved over from council secretary and has done a marvelous job connecting both staff and lay leadership together. Jim Gano is going to be our chair next year as well. We have Brianna Seja, who you might have heard her sing before, and Gisela Rieger, who regrets that she cannot be here on this day. What? She's at the beach. Gisela, I hope you see this. We're all mad at you. So we have a wide range of folks that have been here a long time, folks that have been here a short time, that think about these things together. So just that's who we are as a community. Also, I wanted to send some small regrets. They're not super deep regrets, but that's both by Carol Paw, our council president, as well as Robert Burkhart, our council vice president, who will be president next year. Carol is unfortunately out of town. We're mad at her. She's at a Rotary thing in Houston, Texas. And then Robert Burkhart is coming back from Senate Assembly doing work there. And so they told me, please press on, and just they support this wholeheartedly, and there's nothing that is shady about them not being here. They just couldn't be here. So I just wanted to let you know that. Okay? I will get out of the way, also because this is your furniture, this is your space, and I am leaving ultimately, but I will help MC and facilitate any questions or conversations at the end of this, okay? Any questions for me right now about that? Okay, that's what we're doing here. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Yes, everything is recorded. That's a great question. Is this being recorded? Yes, we are recorded live. For anybody who couldn't be here today, you can watch it back. Or if you're needing to process and think about things a little bit longer, you will have access to this again. Okay, with that, Robert. Or I should call you Bob. We've got so many Roberts.
Good morning, all. We are going ahead with a morning that is out. Excuse me?
Or just a little louder.
All right, let's try this one. Pardon? It's just me. All right. As I was about to say, above on the screen we have an outline of how the morning will progress. So, how we got here. How did we get here? This day. This section will be reviewed more fully by Brianna Seja. But going back to last September, when I made a switch from my previous post of council secretary and accepted the chair of Board of Worship, at that time I tried to familiarize myself with what was going on with the board. So I talked to both Pastor Gary and Pastor Jason, as well as the rest of the ministerial staff. So there was more than a germ of this very idea even way back then. But by January, it was beginning to be an idea to be developed. The overview of movement. The diagrams of the proposed changes for both the south wing of our sanctuary and the balcony will be reviewed by Patrick Marchand. This is all in the spirit of improving our worship and our music as St. Mark's. The two go hand in hand in the Lutheran Church, where music has always been a most significant part of worship. The benefits and considerations. The benefits resulting from the repurposing of our space will be reviewed by Jim Gano and myself. The considerations, things that we need to consider, would be further reviewed by Patrick Marchand and Tracy Billman. So then, what's next? Or what would be the next steps following this forum? I will review those possibilities. And certainly last and not least, time for open dialogue and questions. The last part of our forum will be just that. We request that at that time, anyone wishing to speak would please move to one of the microphones for all to hear. And that would be the content of the meeting. With that, let's get started with some background by Brianna Seja.
Thank you, Bob. I'm Brianna Seja, and I want to just review some of the basic thoughts where this began last fall, when COVID was still keeping everything inconsistent and we weren't sure what was happening kind of from month to month. We moved the choir down to practice and to sing down to this area, and I think that just kind of helped. That was just something that it was just a nice little change, and had helped things become a little easier for us to spread out and be an open area, and it started leading to more of a ability for us to participate a little easier in the general service most of the during the services. So it was it just became we were able to create a little bit more of a vocal. We were able to create a little bit more of a vocal leadership for the entire service, not just the offertory song. So during the psalms and just singing hymns, and it made, at least personally as someone participating in the choir, feel a lot more involved in the service, instead of just a one piece and then up and down and that sort of thing. So, and then beyond that, ensembles, when we would get together to do small pieces or, collaboration with different instruments and, or coming up on the chancel, and it just, everything seemed a little smoother and a little easier to understand and to deal with, to move. So we started thinking about how we can kind of make that a little bit more permanent, and what we could do in long-term planning for that. So, and then that was the fall, but the Board of Worship has been, just like Bob had mentioned, has kind of been really putting this together and really thinking about this since the beginning of the year. So it might seem like this is a new thing, a new idea, but we have definitely been thinking about it and considering it for quite a while, and so there's been some very thorough planning, I guess, going through. Even though nothing is set in stone or made any decisions, it's just there's been a lot of things that have a lot of planning and a lot of consideration. So anyway, yes, I think that. So that's just the very beginning of how it started.
Okay, I'm going to be up here with these diagrams twice. I just want to give you an overview before we get to all the details, and then after Bob and Jim go through all the details, we'll come back to these. So what you're looking at is this columbarium is obviously, oh, there it is where it is on that wall. So the organ is kind of, organ's where it will be in the future, hopefully. Columbarium, utility closets are there. And then this opens up the handbells to come out straight from the back wall, to have our choir and our grand piano from the balcony downstairs, and then to have a room for the praise team over on this side, which leaves the balcony looking like this. Our pipe chamber is immobile, so that's where that will be. On each side, there's now a massive subwoofer for the new digital organ. But it gives us room to put, there are 2 9-foot pews. One of them is in here, one of them is in the Sunday school hallway currently. We're going to swap those around. And then our 2 longest pews actually fit across the span of the balcony. We know these center sections, seats, not great, but they're there. And with that, I have Jim to tell you some ideas. Some ideas. I'm caffeinated.
Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate it very much. Good morning, everybody. As I was listening to Brianna about why the choir moved downstairs from the balcony, because of COVID. And I've never really thought about anything positive about COVID, but that was a real positive. And I've always tried to be a glass half full kind of guy. And that was one of the things that I just realized. So we're also going to talk about the other aspect of a glass half full, which is the benefits of this proposal. The first benefit shown on the slide of repurposing the South Sanctuary Wing is to facilitate the evolution of the music leadership throughout the entire worship service. The choir's participation in the worship service has evolved from merely performing a music selection for the offertory to one where the choir now leads the congregation in a number of additional music pieces such as the singing of the psalms, when those are a part of the service, to leading the singing of music that is new or unfamiliar to the congregation, such as during the different liturgical settings. Being on the floor in the South Wing aids in this leadership, especially when several different components of the music worship are involved, such as when the choir performs with the brass or when the choir performs with the handbells. The second benefit that you'll see up there addresses the creation of a strong connection between the worship musicians and the congregation. Under this plan, the congregation will have an enhanced ability to see the choir and other musicians when they perform individually and together, since they'll be all in the same area. One thing that I've enjoyed with the placement of the new Rogers digital organ over there is that it's nice to be able to see Patrick at the organ. It reminds me a little of the way I used to marvel at the playing of the mighty Wurlitzer organ. It also reminds me of the less wonderful Hammond B3 organ that we used to have at the roller rink. I just enjoy seeing the organ played, and seeing Patrick at the organ is a real plus for me. Next slide, please. The first benefit shown on this slide is the ease of accessibility on the main floor for the musicians. I was a member of St. Mark's when we worshiped in the old sanctuary, which is still a part of this campus. I remember, as do others here today or online, how the choir had to snake its way through a back corridor in choir robes in order to get to our chairs in the choir area. This was a lot of trouble and not safe. From this previous environment, we moved to the new sanctuary, which didn't offer the choir members much relief in the balcony. The choir was placed in a balcony on steep risers. Building architects are apparently not members of any choir. The previous location of the choir in the sanctuary balcony was very cumbersome, to say the least, especially for the men who had to climb steep risers with very limited room to stand. In addition, in order to accommodate those choir members who wanted to participate in communion with their families, choir members had to rush downstairs after singing the offertory, which was a real pain, in some cases both figuratively and literally. At one time, one of our choir members was in a knee brace, which necessitated that he use a cane. Even though it wasn't safe for him to do so, out of a sense of commitment to the choir, he continued to participate, even though it wasn't really safe for him to do so. With the better location of the choir in the South Wing, this safety concern has been greatly, if not entirely, eliminated. That's a real plus. The last benefit shown on this slide is a huge benefit because it involves the relocation of the praise team to the South Wing of the sanctuary. This part of the plan allows for the safer use of the chancel area by communion assistants and for the use of the communion rail, once again, when COVID concerns are lifted. Personally, as a lector, have always had to be especially careful not to bump into any of the praise team equipment around the lectern. It will be nice not to have this concern anymore. Making it easier to safely move across the chancel area and the use of the communion rail, once again, will be huge benefits derived from the adoption of this plan. Thank you.
So continuing on with benefits, this benefit is somewhat related to the last one that Jim mentioned, but yet it has its own identity. It clearly sets a visual focus for worship at the altar. While we refer to our board as the board of worship, it is so much more than worship. It is worship and music. The two go hand in hand. To give due to the worship, this would clear the chancel and communion rail of praise team equipment. And yes, it would actually clear the praise team to a new area, thus keeping the chancel more focused on the worship component. The next benefit, it expands the space around the Columbarium, both for personal reflection and for use in memorial and internment services. This would also enhance that area. The next slide, please. The next benefit, there would be more effective use of the main floor of the sanctuary. Another benefit tied to this is that seating with better visibility would be available in the balcony, and this will be spoken to more in the near future. The next one, a central location for all music ministry creates flexibility in setup for collaboration between groups and musical arrangements. And we also want to make participation in any of the musical organizations more inviting for boys and girls of all ages. At this time, Tracy and Patrick will talk about considerations.
So Jim, if I may, I'm going to be the half-empty glass person. Sorry. So just a few things we've really thought about in this whole process is, of course, we are going to be changing the aesthetic of the sanctuary. Right now it is 4 identical areas, and we get that. So this is something we have put a lot of thought into, making sure that if this goes through, it doesn't look out of place. It should look very natural to the room. And of course, the largest consideration is cost and logistics of moving the pews. There was a whole thought behind that. We have found homes inside this building for every pew in the sanctuary. 4 of them in the balcony, 2 of them in the social hall, 2 in the Sunday school hallway. There was already 2, and then for clarity, there's only a total of 2 in the Sunday school hallway. Those 2 are being pulled out, and 2 different ones are being put in there. And then 1 in the nursery. And Tracy's got some ideas on how we do worship up there.
First, though, I don't know about you, but when this idea came, it was, I wanted some numbers. I wanted to know how much seating was over there. If we took all those pews out, what did that look like? Would we lose seating? So there is roughly 120 feet of pews over there, and it seats, I'm sorry, that's not right.
Yeah, that's right.
120
it's 120 feet.
I thought it was 100.
If you give every person 18 inches.
So 120 people.
No.
Okay. Anywho.
80 people.
Okay, 80 people. So here's the thing, though. I don't know how many of you have actually sat over there. There's like a line right down the middle that you lose sight of the altar, and part of that is because of how large the pulpit is, and you can't see anything up here. So if you want to be able to see what's happening up here, you want to sit on the
aisle side.
Yeah, the aisle side, whatever. And if you kind of do that, then you lose that 80 seats. It kind of really drops down to 40 viewable seats that they can view what's happening up here. So you think about that, and then we went upstairs and counted how many seats would be if we moved the pews and chairs, and we can get at least 36. I think it's going to be closer to about 44 people that can comfortably sit up there and see everything happening. Then you look at that and you go, well, they're sitting up there. How are they going to participate with offering and communion and children's message and all of those things? Well, we've thought about that a little bit too, in that, and it's always a work in progress with those kind of things, but inviting people to come down for communion, having our ushers going up there to make sure that everything is taken care of. We'll have an offering plate up there. All of these things we're thinking through and making part of our process, so whomever sits in the balcony is still a part of the worship service in all of those areas. The other thing I wanted to talk about was another question that I've heard a lot is about the Columbarium, because you look at it right now, the organ's in the way, you can't get to the Columbarium. So if you look at moving around to the back, that works, you can do that. But if by moving the pews out of the way, there's gonna be enough space, and I don't know if you recognize that on the diagram that Patrick had, but there's enough space that we can put a little seating area dedicated only to the Columbarium, so that you can have a seat, and during the week, if you just wanted to come in and have a moment with your loved one, or if when we are having an interment service, the beauty of all of this is that it's flexible, that the choir chairs could, there's flexible, so you could have a larger party go back there and be a part of an interment service. Am I making sense? Just nod, so just pretend, okay. That's what I have. Patrick, do you want to go from there?
Yes. Okay, so this is by far probably the largest concern I have heard is this flexibility without it looking like a bunch of crap shoved over in the corner, because we don't want to see that. But if you close your eyes for just a moment with me, we're going to time travel exactly 1 year ago. We're going to remember there were 2 rows of handbell tables, there was a gong, there were 3 orff instruments, there was a filing cabinet. You could not walk around the outside aisle. And now we're going to come back and we're going to look and go, wow, look at all that free, open, clean space. It's beautiful, isn't it? So, yes, totally get that. Major concern. We want it to look beautiful. It's a sanctuary. It's our sanctuary. It's our beautiful sanctuary. And this is definitely something that is in play, how these things look. I know I've had a few people ask me, like the cable that goes up on if you've been on the other side of the pillar for the organ, if the organ stays there, that's going in the wall. These are not going to be crazy little cables running all over the place, that kind of stuff. It should have a pretty clean look, chairs and the piano and organ. It should be beautiful. This is something many, many, many sanctuaries have. And it's just kind of us moving forward from this, what we needed in 2004 versus what we need now, and balancing that. And again, this is the diagram. Now that we've talked about it, you can revisualize. We have the Columbarium. You have that flexible space, which is far more than we've ever had, especially next fall. I'm hoping to have an uptick in handbell players. I have 4 people who should be joining us. And in that case, we'll go back to 2 tables of handbells. So we'll be right up on the Columbarium again, handbell table-wise. Otherwise, this way, it's open. Those chairs are movable. If we have a larger internment service, all of that jazz going on. Again, balcony, just a reminder. And Bob, it's you.
So we get to the what's next slide. And we are now at the place in the forum that will provide time for you to voice your concerns and ask questions. And Pastor Jason will facilitate this section. Following our forum today, congregation members, you, others that couldn't be here, are encouraged to continue to contact Board of Worship members as needed. The Board of Worship is scheduled to meet again June 16th. Also, as was mentioned earlier, this concept has taken pretty good shape by January. It was included in various reports from the ministerial staff, included in our council minutes. There has been some limited discussion with the Board of Property Chair. Last month it was brought to the council. So at this point, the Board of Worship, the plans are to present a concept for repurposing the south wing for music ministry at our June 20th council meeting. So those are all possibilities that we are looking forward to. So at this time, I would welcome Pastor Jason back to the front to facilitate our dialogue with you. And again, if you would like to speak, we ask that you use the microphones for the benefit of all.
Thank you. And can you go back one more? So for those of you, we need to hear from you. And this is the proper channel. If you want to take out your cell phone, please take out your cell phone, take a picture of this. Again, this will be shared. But the proper places where you can share your support or your concern is with these folks. So Bob Bowler, the chair, Carol T. Papaw, current council president, Robert Burkhart, vice president, and myself, okay? In this, I would also encourage you to understand that this is going to be a shared conversation, okay? This is not we don't need any trolls out there with anonymous feedback throwing shade on the internet. What we need is just open, nice discussion. If you don't like it, totally fine. If you're all for it, great. Just know that we are going to talk about this and consider all these opinions and move forward in the wisest way that, again, best stewards the mission and vision of this place. Okay? So please, let these folks know how you feel sometime between now and June 16. Between now and June 16th. Okay, that gives about 10 days, 10, 11 days. Okay? All right, so with that, we'll open it up for some questions.
I was just wondering if by presenting the concept on...
Remember, because they're going to have to hear everybody.
There was like 2 dates up there on the What's Next. It was June, 2 weeks from now. For the people that need to kind of mull this over, I just want to make sure no decisions are being made in the month of June. Like it's not going to be voted on and a decision made in the month of June, because some people might need a little more time. I'm hearing everyone, there's folks have been thinking about this since January. That's 5 months. So I'm just wondering what the timeline is for anticipating a vote.
Yes, the question, the council does feel that it is an appropriate time to vote on it and consider it in June at the 20th meeting. So we are asking that you have 11 days to think about it, to chew on it, and
Just send emails?
And
Any kind of discussions or sharing of ideas here?
This is what we're doing right now, today. Yep, so we're going to be able to talk about this today together, and then all this information will be brought forward into the council space when we talk about this together. That's the plan. Okay? All right. Gloria, come on up, because we always going to need to hear you. I know, we have to kind of do it like a council town hall, because remember, this is being recorded, and if your friends are not here, they need to hear your voice this way. So if you have a question or a comment, like a Synod Assembly or something like that, it's totally appropriate to begin to just move to the mic, and we will recognize the various mics. Yes.
My question is short. I just want to know how it's going to impact, because I couldn't tell from the map, the closets for Altar Guild.
That's a great question. How will this impact closets for Altar Guild, Patrick?
So Tracy and I have talked about this a little bit. We're hoping both of these closets will actually be empty. We're going to use those for music, and you'll have more space, open space in these 2 rooms than you currently have in the Altar Guild closets.
Okay.
But regardless, even if the stuff doesn't end up moving, you're going to have a huge chunk of area, because on the diagram, which you have there, your praise team, these are things that are not like permanent.
They're not
fixtures.
squares.
It's open floor.
Okay.
And then people stand there on a Sunday.
But you're going to keep the Altar Guild stuff. The plans are to keep it within the sanctuary.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
That's what I need. Thank you.
Yep, Altar Guild stuff would remain in the sanctuary. I'm getting a rise to the mic from Lynn Reddington. Lynn, what you got?
According to this diagram, it looks like I'm going to be about that far from the drum kit. We've done this before in the very early days in the old sanctuary, and sometimes when we've played away from the church. I believe we're going to need the drum kit enclosed and mic'd somehow. I'm not sure how to do that. I'm not saying how to do that. But from past experience and a hard floor over here, it's going to be really loud around the drum kit. So please consider putting in some sort of protection for the rest of your musicians.
This is twofold on our agenda. Number one is it can definitely, we can put a surround around it, we can put a carpet down, whatever we need. I have had great success in open stone sanctuaries with drum sets, so it kind of depends on your player. Number one. Number two, on our extended wish list, we have a digital drum set, which would knock all of those fears away. If anyone's really bothered by drums and they want to donate $3,000, call me.
Do you want? Who's in line? Jim, come on up. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna pause because. Okay, we'll go Jim, then we'll go on this side, and then we'll kind of go back and forth. Jim,
Thanks,
French.
Jason. First of all, I'd just like to say what a marvelous worship experience today was. I was thrilled when I got here, and I think Glenn said he couldn't even find a place to park. That's great. That's what we want. And the experience itself was wonderful. The music was excellent. The singers and the horns here in the front, it worked fine for me. When we have the choir sitting here, I think it works fine. It makes, this is not a great big church. I'll say it's an intimate church. And I think having the musicians, the praise band, here in the front adds to the intimacy. I've been doing it for 20 years. There was some concern about the speakers. That's a technical problem. We can solve a technical problem like that. Today, we had people sitting over here, people sitting all over. We had one service. It says there's a potential for us to have one service all together. We're going to do that this summer. Maybe we do that later. We need some of these seats, maybe not all of them. So I think moving all of the pews is a bridge too far. I think this is innovative, but I think there's also some opportunity to experiment a little bit more before we make such a big physical change, which is probably practically irreversible. I think we need to be pretty deliberate. I don't think the outgoing council should make this decision. In all due respect to all my friends on the council, to vote in your last session for this big a change, no, that's not responsible. I think there's some great things to be done with music as part of worship, to enhance worship. Patrick has brought a tremendous amount of talent here. His musical ability and his enthusiasm are the kind of thing we need. Let's foster that, but let's be very careful of what we do here. I think we could have the praise singers sit over here, maybe the two guitars and the drums still be in the back, and try that. I think moving the musical focus over here versus up there is going to be a step backwards. I wasn't in favor of having the praise band up front, but we've been doing it for 20 years, and with the people we have participating, it works. And the blended service we've got works. But let's not be too hasty about moving all of these seats. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jim. So yeah, there's definite some good points and some considerations at that point. All right, step on.
Okay, Lynn already had my first question, so I'll go on the second one. I think, I'm not real familiar with it, but isn't there a lot of audio cables like underneath the chancel, and then how do you see running the cables once you're over there?
Yeah, so there are actually, everything on the chancel stage is all analog cabled at the moment. So yes, there's tons of cables underneath there. I've been underneath there, fun times. To do this into that area, we are now all digital. So like there's a single cable that comes out of this corner that the entire praise team runs out of now. We don't use a ton of the stuff on the stage. Same concept would be in there. There's gonna be a cable that runs from the balcony into that far closet where all of the connections can be made. We're gonna put a pass-through in the wall for a snake. It'll be a cute little low voltage pass-through, so very minimal visual on the wall, and all of that's gonna run through the basement on that single cable. The hanging microphones, again, are gonna run through the top, so you won't see a ton of cable. All you will see is a single, we don't have one up here, a single snake cable that will run up to the praise team, so it'll even be less clutter than what you're seeing here. The powers of computers.
Good question. All right, Glenn, come on up to the mic.
Thank you. I didn't speak in front of the congregation except 32 years ago. Didn't work out that time either. Okay. I understand the expectations and the hopes of this. I really understand Jim's point. I think that your diagram is not well conceived because it places a drum kit, in a sense, permanently in a space, in a bass guitar and a guitarist in a specific place, as if you have to have that space in which to, you have a piano of which, oh, sorry, you have a piano, I usually talk way too loud. You have a piano which is, there is one here, there is one there, and there is a player piano. I don't think you need 3 pianos in this space. You probably won't need this one since you'll have the, not the player, the grand piano, sorry. But the electronic piano can be placed right here. So that takes out a keyboard. Now the drum kit, which I agree, the drum kit at this point is in a closet, more than likely a carpeted closet. So the amount of sound that it puts out is extremely muted, which seems appropriate for what we've been doing with it. You're talking about taking out 20% of the acoustical absorption material in this sanctuary. These things absorb a huge amount of sound, and then you're talking about exposing a concrete floor. Now, I know that musicians hate carpet, and I know that a concrete floor is far worse. Now, so if you leave some pews, you keep some of your acoustical balancing. This sanctuary, when it was built, the architects, I'm sure, had an acoustical engineer come through here and tune this room. This room is tuned so that that organ hits all of those acoustical panels on that wall. That's it. That's where the acoustical balancing is created, on that wall. By putting music down here, now we need to be aware that the sound is going this way, and that wall is not acoustically balanced.
So I would like to clarify on that, though.
Mm-hmm.
Placement in the room isn't changing where the sound's coming out of. Your speakers are still up here. Your organ sound is still coming from there. You're not changing.
Right.
Like, I can stand here. I can stand right here.
Right.
My voice just came out of the...
Well, now that's where then you can also say the choir could stay in the choir loft because they make the same sound because they're mic'd. But I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that the voices and the things that aren't necessarily mic'd are going the long direction, and that hasn't been dealt with. But what I'm really concerned about is this concrete floor. Right. So, but anyway, so if you take the keyboard and the drum kit, I think the drum kit will fit beautifully in one of these closets. If you need more sound from it, you roll it out. You put it on a rolling platform, you roll it out. If you don't need that much sound, then you can leave it in the closet because everything that's in here will go up there. So that eliminates, now and the bass and the guitar player are only there while they're playing and can be moved anywhere in this space. So that puts, and the grand piano being triangular will actually fit right below where the utility closet is when it's not being used because it's on rollers. It can be moved anywhere into this space when it's being used. So what you've done now is you've cleared an entire triangle from the base of the utility closet all the way to that grand piano. It is you've found other space for those objects and those things. That keeps 4 pews. 4 pews keep half of the acoustical absorption that they have been performing in the past, and they don't occupy any space that you need, because all those things we've already found another place for it. Now, it leaves, because why are you moving seating in order to create seating? You can put the choir right here where they've been performing, and they can turn when they're singing and sing to the congregation, whereas if they're back there, they're singing to the back of the congregation.
But they're not back there.
That's what you
okay.
have.
No, where I have them is right here. So you have your piano, and your choir is standing yay direction.
And everybody else is facing this way so that the sound is coming from behind them.
Right, but again, we mic everything in this room, because if I turn my mic off, nobody can hear me. I understand your acoustics and that wall, but the room itself is so dead that you're not gonna.
But this puts the choir in front of them. If they sit here instead of sitting there. I mean, everybody in the congregation can see me without turning around. Not see you without turning around. And apparently they like to watch the choir sing. So anyway, I just said, you have your praise team having to be right here, even though they're only there occasionally, as opposed to having them placed you have this open space. Now, by not putting the 3 rows of 7 choir chairs there, you have a very nice area for the Columbarium.
Okay. So.
And, one more thing.
Go for it.
Your handbell choir is almost never that big. It's this big. Okay. Why are you designated that much space? Because if it needs to be bigger, then you can adjust things. Because it's a flexible space. You're anchoring it in to demand everything, when in fact you don't need everything. You don't need 4 pews taken out of here. Anyway.
Okay, so to summarize, a lot of great thoughts just came from Glenn about possibility of creating a plan B. So just let me
that's all.
See if we can get this tight. You're suggesting perhaps the plan be modified so that the back pews would be removed.
Yeah,
and
back.
that some of these elements could be used to create that space, leaving the first kind of 4 so you have that visual kind of tapering,
right.
And then the choir would be in that front section. That's essentially what your proposal is.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure that was kind of understood and things about that. All right, Phyllis.
Okay. I just wondered, maybe I missed it. What would we be doing with the upright piano by bringing the other instruments in there? Would it go like in the fellowship hall for singing, or what are we going to do with it?
It came out of a Sunday school classroom. It's never been in here. We moved it in last fall because of the choir transition. Our goal is actually to put it into the chapel, because there's not a functional instrument in there right now. So it would be a switcheroo to the chapel.
All right. Looks like Tom is moving to the mic.
It's a pickup mic. You don't have to move it.
Okay. Well, hey guys, I'm Tom, and a lot of you guys probably know that I'm not on any boards or anything like that. But one thing that I have done is play guitar like right over there for like 10 years now. And since I've been here, I have noticed one thing about St. Mark's is there is 2 groups of people. One group of people who want everything exactly the same forever, and then one group that want to change every single thing all the time.
Yes, there is tension.
And I think both groups are here today.
It's true.
I tend to lean a little more towards the let's keep it the way it always was, but this is actually a good idea. It is a really good idea. Since I've been playing here, I mean, look at that stage. It's cluttered. Have you ever done altar guild and tried to weave between, like, especially this morning, you know, it was like, it's a mess. I mean, we had 15, 16 people doing communion behind there. It's just insane. There's too many people. Got music stands everywhere. And it's bugged me since I've been here. I mean, I know we've done it for 20 years. I've been here for 10 of them. But what we're talking about, I mean, it's like, it's just cluttered. It doesn't look good. If you're worried about how it's going to look over there, I mean, look at this. I mean, we haven't even, I don't even have my stuff up there right now. I mean, we've got speakers and stands and everything, and, you know, it would, especially since we're streaming now, a nice picture of this beautiful stage, which was designed without a care for ever putting a musician up here. I mean, it was like somebody had a second thought, like, you know, we ought to have a praise team. We already built it, but, you know, we'll put some drums in there and, you know, just let everybody kind of find a spot. You know, and it works. You know, it works, but, you know, if there might be a better way to do something, like I said, I'm usually let's keep it the way it was guy, but, you know, maybe every once in a while those change everything people have a point. I mean, Patrick has no idea what he's just jumped into with this, but I think it's a great idea. And as far as some of the concerns about, oh, the bass guitar is going to be right there and the guitar is going to be right there, we go direct, guys. I mean, there is literally no amp on stage that makes noise off of my guitar. If you turn the PA off, you would hear gling, gling, and I mean, it's nothing. There's all the sound that you're hearing is going to come up from the same place. And as far as the drums, I mean, the plans are for a electronic set of drums, which make, you know, I mean, you won't even hear that. I mean, it's nothing. I mean, you will hear the acoustic sound of the voices over if you turn the PA off. I mean, we don't make any noise, really. So, I mean, and then the thought of like, well, we can have the drums over here and the guitar over here and the bass player outside. I mean, that was okay, but you know, sorry, Lynn. If you've ever played in a musical group, I mean, when you see musical groups on TV, you'll notice they're all kind of together. There's a reason for that. People like to look at each other and kind of feel out where you're at, what you're doing, you know. And, you know, he's trying to do this and, you know, guide it. And if he's got you know, behind me, up, you know, where is everybody? I mean, it's no way to keep command and control. Now, as far as from the construction standpoint, I mean, we're talking about moving pews. I mean, we can move all the pews out, and we can move them back in. I mean, it's not a permanent thing. I mean, they unbolt from the floor. We're not throwing them away. We can put them back exactly where they came from, if it works out, you know, terribly for some reason. But I mean, you're not tearing out a wall. You're not doing anything. But you know, I mean, I understand some concerns, but you know, I mean, it's some of them come from the fact that, you know, you've never played music in a group, and it's easy to armchair quarterback when you've never actually done it. So, and I'm sorry if I stepped on some toes here, but you know, I do think this is a good idea.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Glenn had one small comment. Just say it to me so I can say it again.
The pews are bolted down.
Correct.
That's true. But in order to take them off, the bolts have to be cut off.
Okay. So
you won't put them back on without drilling more holes.
Correct. Okay, so what Glenn's point is, just so everybody heard, the pews are all bolted down. Those bolts come from the bottom of the floor. So when you move a pew, you saw off that bolt. And so if you put the few back, then you're going to have to re-anchor them again, and that creates more holes in the floor. And that's the main point. Putting them back in is a bit more complicated than that, because you're going to have bolts coming out of the floor. So that's what we're talking about. All right, Jason was moving to the mic. Jason Gassler, what you got?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the camp of I like things the way they were. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. Especially being a choir member and playing in the brass, the wind ensemble a little bit. I like playing from the loft. A couple of things that we would lose by moving out of I was actually kind of wondering, when we were going to go back up there. I'm not a big fan of singing down here. Up there, we're on the risers, and you can see a little better. I know that not having a separate piano or organ player and conductor makes this a little different, but it is easier to see the conductor when you're on risers. And up there, we had extra lighting to help us see our music. Down here, I've noticed it is a little dark to try to read music, and maybe that's because I'm getting a little older. I notice that a little more. But yeah, and having the wind ensemble up there, it does make it easier. And I think some of the concerns with the way the sound moves around, the brass I don't think uses microphones very well. So it projects, and you kind of need that acoustic, I guess, absorption for the brass up there. But yeah, I think that was the main thing I want to say is I do like singing from the cloth. I don't like being down here. I can't really speak to the contemporary part. I think it is a great idea to get those musicians off of more of an altar and not make it so much of a stage like it is.
So then my question, just for clarity.
Yeah.
You would enjoy singing in the balcony even if under our current model I wanted you up there the entire service? Yes. Okay.
So the demand would be for the choir to be up there for the entire service. So if you were a choir member, we would ask you to do your part, but you're up there, and that's what Patrick is saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
One question I had was, excuse me.
Go ahead, Jed.
I'll repeat it.
In this evaluation process, was study putting everything up there, bracing, we've got those outdoor rooms, and we've got technologies where cameras can show what's going on up there. Was up there evaluated as an option?
So the question was up there evaluated as a possible option? If we moved all our praise team and all music is up there as is the best way. Patrick, can you?
Yeah, so there's not enough space because I don't know, they're not really steps, they're like double steps. The B's, whatever you want to call them up there, are structural. So we can't just like knock those out. There's nothing underneath them. Like I've been up in the ceiling out in the narthex here, and you look up and you can see the stepping process. So we can't just like level that ground to put things up there. And because of the width of those steps, it's really one chair. You have enough room for that person. So like our wind ensemble, if I was playing trumpet. Right. And the bells. Right. So you can't, especially if you want all four groups up there now. I'm saying there's not enough room for those two alone, let alone all four of them.
Also, a point to the cameras. Yes, we can see up here, but if we had all of our instruments up here, visibility would be very limited.
A point to the cameras. We can kind of point them there. However, it would be very limited visibility, is what Shelby said. So even in all of our technology, to have them kind of mounted in, or pretend the praise band was in this kind of corner behind Shelby. If you go up to the balcony where the filing cabinets are, if we set up a stage or a band set up there, it's not going to work. And same if you did this side with pretend the bells were in that section of the loft. So that would not work. All right, Jennifer.
Hey, I'm Jennifer Mullen. I don't think there's anybody besides maybe me and Jim French that care more about what the sanctuary looks like and the whole building. We've been, both of us, very invested in that, and Jim's done a tremendous amount of stuff here. And that said, I want to say we also have been invested in doing something different and growing our church. We hired a dynamic music director who's the first one that I've seen in the 30-something years I've been here that the kids actually high-five and know his name. So that's wonderful, hoping that those programs grow. I am in no way a music person. I don't know about the sound things. Maybe we need to get a sound engineer in here to look at that. Maybe you've already done that. I don't know. But I do know that we have to do something different, and we have to do what the music people need, and they know what that is. So whatever compromise maybe we have to do over there to make that happen, to get started. I don't want to just say, you know, June 20th is too soon, so we're going to scrap the whole thing. Maybe we could do something, if we can't get the whole thing done by then, to start using that space and see if it works. I'd really rather use the space than have it sit there. We haven't needed that space in this church in 10 years. So hopefully we will. I mean, I'd love to have that many people. But if we're going to seat people in the balcony in the meantime also, I just really think we have a lot of music people that are trying to do some new things. And I personally do not want to be someone who says, we have to do it the way we've always done it. We've really got to try. We've got to step out. We have to trust our staff. And I hope we can do that, if not the full plan, in some way to get this kind of going and try it and see if it works.
All right. Thank you. All right. Kathy Corpus is moving to the mic. Kathy Seja is queued up on deck. Kathy Seja, why don't you go over? Kathy's going, and then Tate. So we got three in a row. All right.
I'm a new member of the church, and this is the first time since I've been Lutheran that I have not joined the choir.
Escort, security.
Yeah, sorry. And I appreciate everything everybody said. I know there's pros and cons, and this is to me, a fluid work of art. One, I would rather be down here. I've got arthritis in my knees. Going up and down the stairs is not something that I would even consider. What? Well, there's an elevator if it works, but trying to get up and down an elevator for communion it's tough. I'm not going there. The second thing is I am an old band parent, and I have carried instruments around and everything. It's not easy. A tuba weighs 50 pounds. Have you ever seen it spit valve emptied?
Sorry.
It's like seeing an elephant blow water out of its nose. So, you know, I mean, it's just something that, to me, we could expand our music program if we would give this a chance. I agree there are some things it's not perfect, but you didn't say it was. So can we kind of agree to disagree about how it's going to be set up specifically, but that there are many people who are willing to do some things that are not doing some things right now because of the way it's set up. And we sit on this side of the church, we don't see pastor, we cannot see pastor when he's doing communion.
True.
And that, to me, I'm not leaving the church because of it. If he doesn't eat my potato salad at the next potluck, I'll leave. But you know, that would really be a plus for this side of the congregation to see communion again.
Yep.
Because of which I love.
Right.
And I'm also one of those who wears bifocals, and I've been a lector before and really had to watch those wires. So there's a lot of good and bad on both sides that we can consider.
Okay.
I personally, I'm for it.
Thanks, Kathy. Kathy Seja.
My point, people who know me know I'm all about aesthetics. This is not pretty, and this is an altar. This is an altar, not a stage. It's an altar. It's supposed to be sacred, and I feel very strongly, and today is certainly not the first time I've heard it called a stage. It's been called a stage a lot, and that's because it's used as a stage. So I would really like us to figure something out. If this plan doesn't work, maybe there's another plan that will. I happen to be in favor of moving the music in one area. One of my thoughts or questions is there a way to raise that up so that those of us who sit over here can see the people? And I don't know if that could be in the future or something. Anyway, that was one of my thoughts. But I would love to see the music stands come down. As much as I like seeing people up here, I think, I mean, this is our altar. So I'd like to see it used as an altar.
Thank you, Kathy. Tate, you were in line, and then we'll go to Gwen.
Hi, thanks. Mine is specific to the choir. I think there's been talk about the instruments and being mic'd up, and the praise team is certainly mic'd up. One thing that I thought, because it's the only change that's really happened, is the choir came down here. And I was just wondering, when they came down here, were they mic'd up like it would be planned to be?
No, so we've just kind of, it was a temporary operation, and we ended up enjoying it down here, where we had these, actually the mic you're talking into right now has been micing the choir, which is totally not ideal. In this, I guess it's not on the diagram, it's on one of my diagrams somewhere, there would be hanging microphones going 3 bands across this area, so they'd be mic'd exactly like they were upstairs. The microphones are nearly invisible. There's 2 of them hanging off the balcony right here, and nobody has complained about them in 8 months. So Shelby at stmarkshsb.org if you have concerns. No. So there would be 6 of those, 6 or 8 of those microphones hanging down across that area for a pure choir pickup.
Okay, so it will be a better miking for the choir. And the other part of this question is really the balance between the instruments and the choir when the choir's going, because in the talk it was mentioned about leadership in terms of helping the rest of the congregation if you're musically challenged like I am. Yeah. You know, that really can be beneficial, and I just thought that when they came down here that maybe we lost some of that.
Yep.
And so it does sound like you're going to be addressing that and looking at balance. Is that correct?
Yes. That was definitely something we were aware of and discussed, and we just didn't have a better option in a temporary setup than those mics.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Gwen?
I just want to say, I just think it's a great idea simply because when you're all together, Patrick has done miracles with small numbers of people. And he's put so many different groups together. And you do, like somebody said, you do need to be together when you're singing. And so if we can all be over here together in one area, I think it says we're a church that's looking forward and got a good music department and welcoming. And I just think it's a great idea. I don't mind jumping off of there, coming over here.
All right, and Glenn. Yes, Glenn has a question.
How are you going to hang those mics?
It's a thin steel cable.
It's a grid system, right?
What?
It's a grid system you're going to hang from the ceiling that then the mics hang from?
No, it's a thin steel cable that'll go from beam to beam.
So it will be across there, okay. That's
right,
what I was
yes.
wondering. Okay, thank you.
I haven't put my input into this too much as pastor, but I just wanted to let you know what I see from leadership in this place that any pastor is going to have to face. To me, one of the things, and I won't speak for you, Dennis, but I think about the Columbarium and the interment services that we do. I think it would be a real advantage to be able to free that up so I can get folks into that space during that time rather than climbing over the pews. Okay, so that's one thing that from a pastoral leadership thing, no matter who's in this chair, that is going to be a concern. Second of all, when I'm up here, regularly I see over and over that this is not utilized space well. It's just not. I mean, you can talk about how fast communion happens on this side versus this side is obviously because folks sit over here and we have the obstructed view. And so this is where this kind of came into context. Over and over again, I see that this is a part that's just not utilized. And so this, I know we all have feelings, we're problem solvers, there's engineers, there's smart people in this congregation, and I really want to commend you all for just the discussion. Again, it's really important to me as a leader that this is not divisive. This is just thinking, this is stewardship. This is stewardship. How do we best utilize what we have? How do we best utilize what we have? And we have a beautiful sanctuary, no question. Very traditional, very, a powerful place when it's full, when it's evenly distributed. There's no question on that. We have a Columbarium that preserves the legacy of, our loved ones in this place, and we want to see that utilized well. And so how do we think about that? How do we continue to tweak and do that? We've got an excellent music program where the vision now is more collaborative, where we're getting more people involved to lead throughout the service, okay? And so I know there's give and take. I know it might make us uncomfortable, but it is critical to me that we engage in this discussion, that we think together, that we imagine together, and see what we come up with. All right, you guys are smart and lovely people who have beautiful relationships. And if this conversation continues to go on beyond my tenure here, that's okay. Be patient with one another. Everybody's smart, everybody's passionate, everybody cares deeply about this place and what we put forward, okay? So this time was a chance to do things differently. It was a chance to be together in a way that is meaningful and intentional. If you have further questions, I'm gonna please reach out to, again, the board of worship. Again, reach out to our those that are receiving the feedback, Bob Bowler, Carol TV-Paw, Robert Burkhart, and myself, okay? Also, I've been working real hard about being everybody above board, all right? I don't like anonymous feedback, all right? This is we want to communicate well with one another, okay? Your opinions are valid, but again, we are growing together in faith to abundantly nourish our community, and how do we do that together, okay? Diana, you got one comment, question?
This is exactly what you were talking about, because I want people to understand that this is not a done deal all the way.
Not all.
That their input can be given to you or anybody on the contacts list, and
right.
That needs to be considered and incorporated into whatever is going forward.
Please. So what she was saying is just, again, that feedback is going to come to us. These 4 people, we're all going to talk, okay? So if you get the brilliant idea to be the really squeaky wheel and have a private conversation with me and have a private conversation with Carol, and you have, that's not going to fly. We're all going to talk about this and bring it forward. If we need more time to think of compromises, which I thought was a really interesting and imaginative idea, we can talk about more time. If we want to talk about how to steward our place well and all that. Tom, I thought that was a beautiful thing. St. Mark's, there's always going to be tension in the system. And not tension that is destructive, but tension of beautiful people thinking about different things differently. Okay, and so at this time is how we come together in that and rise above that. So thank you for your time and your attention. Is it okay if I pray us out, or do you have anything else? Okay.
I think giving us a closing prayer would be beautiful. I just wanted to comment that Kathy Corpus brought up the brass thing, and being a brass player for about 70 years myself, and a former band director, and I know Kathy is a band parent, was and still is. All of those folks know about the spit valve world, but the brochures from the music companies refer to it as a water key.
The more you know. Thank you, Bob Bowler. And again, thank you to all for holding this and being imaginative. These are the kind of conversations I hope continue in this place for a long time. So let us pray. Come, Holy Spirit, in this place as we talk on Pentecost about what it is, what does it mean? What does it mean to be blessed with such gifts in this congregation? Such gifts as a beautiful sanctuary, such gifts as vibrant music ministry, such gifts as creativity, such gifts as problem solvers. Let us come together in that to continue to be responsive to your Spirit in this place, to be bold in this place, to protect what needs to be protected in this place. Be with these people, help them to communicate well, help them to debate ideas, help them to embrace each other's thoughts and concerns. Let us continue to grow in this place and steward those gifts well as we boldly proclaim your Son, who has come for all, your Spirit that dwells among us now, and this world that has been created by you, our God and Father. All of these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all. Thank you all for the time, and we'll see you next week. We'll be doing church again. Come on down, 10 o'clock. That's a weekly thing.